Okay, let's unpack this. We're about to take a deep dive into, well, a really extraordinary account.
Yeah, this one comes from a practitioner of traditional tantric sadhana, and it details a deeply intense personal experience.
And this specific deep dive, it's built pretty much entirely on excerpts from that single experience, right? As it's chronicled in the book Veils of Fire by Dr. Deepak Raj Subedi.
Exactly. It's one person's very detailed first-person report. Really gets into the nitty-gritty.
So our mission today isn't just, retelling a story. We want to explore this encounter at what sounds like a highly potent spiritual site.
Uh-huh. And really try to understand the level of preparation the source says was involved, which was intense.
Right. And then dive into the strange, very intense events that unfolded over several nights.
And crucially, pull out what lasting lessons this particular account suggests can be drawn from an ordeal like this.
Yeah. The source presents this not just as like an unusual anecdote, but as an exploration of a reality that exists.
Precisely where, as it puts it, conventional explanations fall short.
So it's about grappling with experiences that really push the boundaries of our usual understanding.
Definitely. According to this account, this journey begins at a very specific place, Ujjain Mahakal Shamshan.
Now, Shamshan means cremation ground, but the source is super clear this is not just any cremation ground.
No, not at all. It has this unique significance, deeply tied to its location, right near the famous Mahakaleshwar temple.
So what makes it so distinct? The source points to, what, 3 main factors?
Yeah, 3 key things that it argues create this singular, almost charged, energetic signature of the place. Sets it apart even from other power sites.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first one is really fascinating. It's described as a time junction.
A time junction?
Or, using the traditional term, an Avimukta Kshetra, which translates roughly to a field never abandoned by Lord Shiva. But the key thing here is the claim that time itself becomes sort of malleable in this location.
Malleable how?
Yeah, well, the author notes that practitioners consistently report altered time perception. They're, hours feeling like minutes, or minutes stretching out like hours.
Wow. And the source emphasizes this isn't just like a subjective feeling, not just a metaphor for being absorbed in practice.
Right. It points to what it calls objective properties, observed and understood not through, scientific instruments, but through accumulated empirical practice and perception within these traditions over generations.
That's a key distinction, isn't it? A different kind of empirical knowledge.
Exactly. So that's the first factor. The second is the direct connection to Mahakaleshwar himself.
The great lord of time. Shiva in his most intense, transformative aspect.
Precisely. The source says his proximity brings this powerful, fundamentally masculine, transformative current to the site.
Described as less emotional, maybe? More penetrating, decisive, compared to sites focused on goddess energy, Shakti.
Yeah, that's the sense you get. Less about nurturing, more about cutting through.
Okay. And the third factor?
The third factor, which I think really resonates, is the ancient lineage presence.
Meaning?
Thousands of years of continuous, dedicated practice in that specific spot. The source talks about this creating a residual energy accumulation.
Like a buildup.
Yeah, an accumulated tapas, that spiritual heat or intensity generated through austerity and practice.
So the environment itself is just saturated with focused intent and transformative energy from countless practitioners before him.
Exactly. The source quotes the author's guru saying something like, Ujjain holds the accumulated tapas of generations.
Right.
This makes transformation more accessible, but also more demanding. And then that phrase,
the fire burns hotter there.
Yeah. Be prepared.
Yeah.
That really sets the tone, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So, okay, given this incredibly potent, maybe even intimidating location, how did the author end up there? He'd practice at other big sites like Pashupatinath, Tarapith.
Well, according to the source, it wasn't the usual sort of methodical step-by-step progression you might expect.
Oh, how then?
The call came through dream instruction from his guru, Krishna Lama.
A dream? Seriously?
Yeah. The author dreamt vividly of a specific ancient stone doorway in a cremation ground, and his guru appeared in the dream, pointing to it and saying, Ujjain, next full moon, the doorway is ready.
Wow, that's direct. And did the guru confirm this when he was awake?
Yes. Apparently their relationship had that kind of, synchronicity. But the guru also explained it as an acceleration.
An acceleration.
Calculated risk. was the term used, because an opening or opportunity at Ujjain was available precisely at the junction point of the author's readiness and capacity.
Right.
A window.
A brief window. A calculated risk at a place where the fire burns hotter. That sounds like it would demand some serious preparation.
Oh, absolutely. And the source details a really intense period leading up to it.
What did that involve? It wasn't just mental, right?
No, very physical, too. 21 days of strict vows.
Like what?
A simplified diet, just unflavored milk and fruit. Yeah. Complete sexual abstinence, even in thought, which is a powerful energy discipline in itself.
Okay.
Sleeping only every third night.
Every third night. Why?
Specifically to cultivate a state of heightened energy and alert receptivity. And then cold baths 3 times daily, done with specific mantras.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. On top of all that, he was reciting a protective Biha mantra 10,000 times daily.
10,000 times a day. You just imagine the focus required for that.
It's staggering. And he received critical support, too, a specially consecrated Rudraksha mala from his guru.
A mala, like prayer beads.
Yes, but this one was special. Used by the guru himself for 12 years. The guru said it carried his protection and would create a direct energetic link if things got overwhelming.
So like a tangible, energetic lifeline.
Yeah.
An emergency backup.
Pretty much. And there were other safety measures, too. Significantly, he was given specific emergency mantra.
Emergency mantra.
As the guru described them, almost like spiritual antibiotics. Powerful, but only for a genuine crisis.
Why only then?
There was a strict warning. Unnecessary use, according to the tradition the source describes, creates karmic debt. Potentially harmful if overused, kind of like overusing medical antibiotics can cause problems.
That really underscores the seriousness, the potential forces involved here. Still, despite all this intense prep, the guru apparently emphasized the potential too.
Yes, not just the risk.
Wow.
He said Mahakal could accomplish in 3 nights what might otherwise take 3 years of practice.
So that balance again, immense power, immense opportunity, but only through immense discipline, preparation, and acknowledged risk.
It really ties back to that idea the source highlights later.
Yeah.
Preparation is fundamental. Trying this stuff without that foundation is genuinely dangerous.
Okay, so he's done this incredible preparation. He arrives in Ujjain. Did the place itself feel different?
Yeah, the source says even just arriving in the city, he felt a distinct, almost physical pressure in his chest and forehead, a subtle ringing in the ears. Something was perceptibly different. He did preliminary rituals at the Mahakal temple, then scouted the cremation ground and found it. The ancient stone structure that matched his dream.
The doorway. Did it have like a local reputation?
It did. He apparently spoke to an elderly priest who was pretty cryptic about it, said something like, "Few use it now, it has a reputation." And when pressed, the priest apparently added, "Some say it's protected. Not everyone who enters comes out the same."
Chilling. But he went ahead.
He did. Final preparations, ritual bathing, gathering minimal offerings, sustenance, and entered the chamber with his mala, lamp, herbs, water, just as darkness fell.
Right. So the first night begins. What happened?
Started conventionally enough, establishing traditional protective boundaries, making offerings, beginning the cycle of Mahakal mantras.
And the chamber itself.
The source notes the ancient stone wall seemed to amplify and focus the energy of his practice, made it feel more intense.
Okay. And then things started to shift.
Around midnight, yeah. Perceptions blurred a bit. The darkness felt almost substantive, tangible.
And a first really unusual thing.
Happened about 3 hours in. The flame of his ghee lamp, it suddenly elongated dramatically, stretched nearly a foot high.
A foot high?
Yeah. And stayed perfectly still, no draft or anything, for about 20 minutes.
Whoa.
And at the same time, he felt this distinct, focused pressure right at the crown of his head.
That's incredibly specific. So how did he react? Did the training kick in?
Instantly, according to the source. His discipline held. He didn't panic, didn't try to analyze it, didn't grasp at it, just maintained awareness, stayed centered, and kept the mantra practice going uninterrupted.
That really speaks to the preparation, doesn't it? And that point about real practice involving ordeal, not just comfort.
Exactly. He just stayed with it.
And after the flame went back to normal?
He finished the night feeling unusually energized, actually. Heightened perception color seemed more vivid, sounds sharper.
Okay. So not necessarily negative.
He attributed it, the source says, to activating specific energy centers, chakras, which is a known, often expected effect in deep practice. So not necessarily alarming at that point.
Right. So first night, intense, powerful practice, plus some distinct anomalies like the flame and the head pressure. Then he spent the day in seclusion.
Yeah, silence, minimal rest, but no actual sleep, setting the stage for night 2.
Which began in that state of heightened receptivity, the sleep deprivation, fasting, the energy work building up.
Exactly, what practitioners call the thin boundary condition. Perception gets more permeable to, well, subtle stuff.
And about 2 hours into the practice on night 2, something big happened.
A dramatic physical shift.
Yeah.
Sudden, intense temperature drop in the chamber. So cold his breath became visible.
Just like that?
And simultaneously, he became aware of a presence, coalescing out of the darkness across from him.
Not seeing something, but feeling it.
Initially, yeah. A perceptible region of intensified awareness, attention, carrying, as he describes it, distinct sentience, consciousness.
Okay. And as his mantras continue.
This presence gradually took on a visual form. Not through normal sight, but some other perceptual mode. He saw a figure seated opposite him.
What did it look like?
Humanoid in shape, but made of densely compressed shadow.
Compressed shadow. The source identifies this.
Yes, according to traditional tantric texts, as a Brahma Rakshasa.
Brahma Rakshasa. Now, it's important to clarify, the source says this isn't like a malevolent spirit from folklore.
Right. Not just some random evil thing. It's a specific class of non-physical entity within this tradition's cosmology. A guardian entity.
The guardian. What's their function?
They're described as threshold guardians. Their role is basically to test the practitioner's readiness, their sincerity, their capacity. They guard access to certain knowledge or energy thresholds, part of the subtle ecology of these power places.
So it wasn't attacking him?
No, on the second night, the source says it just observed silently. But its presence created this tangible field effect.
Making the practice harder.
Yeah, intensified the challenge, created a pressure that required continuous adjustment of his energy and awareness just to stay stable and focused.
And then it dawned.
The presence and the unnatural cold just receded, dissolved back into the darkness.
And how did he feel?
Strangely energized again, but also aware that something significant was shifting deep within his energy system, a reorganization happening below conscious control.
Wow. So night 2, first real contact with this guardian entity, which brings us to night 3, the trial by fire, as the source puts it.
Yeah. By this point, the cumulative effects, the prep, sleep deprivation, fasting, energy work had created a significantly altered state.
How so?
The source describes his perception being profoundly affected. Colors had weird halos, sounds had overtones. The boundary between his body and the environment felt really permeable.
Intense, but still within the realm of advanced practice for this tradition.
Apparently so. He entered the chamber on night 3 knowing this was often when the most significant challenges and breakthroughs happen.
And the presence.
Manifested immediately this time. Appeared suddenly, completely. Seated opposite him again.
But different from night 2.
More defined, still condensed darkness, but now with clearer features suggesting an ancient male form. Even like unknown symbols perceptible on his body.
Okay. And after about an hour of this intense observation, things escalated.
Dramatically. As he began the core, most potent transformative mantra sequence, the entity moved.
How?
Not walking. The source describes it as a dimensional shift. Suddenly he was positioned directly in front of him, inches away.
Inches away. That must have been intense.
Overwhelming is the word the source uses. The sensation of being seen at that range, like being probed.
The cow.
His entire being. Deepest motivations, relationship with teachers, capacity, understanding, even karmic history. An intense examination process.
And this had physical effects.
Oh, yeah. Intense physical effects surged. Rapid heart rate, waves of heat and cold washing over him. His hands started forming spontaneous mudras, symbolic gestures, and a very distinct, powerful pulling sensation at his chest. Almost like something trying to separate his subtle energy from his physical body.
Yet, his training held. He kept the mantra going.
That's the core of it. Despite everything, his discipline, forged in those 21 days, kept him anchored. Steady breath, awareness centered, mantra unbroken internally.
Amazing. And this seemed to intensify the testing.
Apparently so. And then, at the peak intensity of that pulling sensation, when it felt almost unbearable,
Yeah.
he instinctively clasped the Rudraksha mala, the one from his guru.
The lifeline. Did it work?
According to the source, the effect was immediate, palpable. He felt a distinct sensation of support, reinforcement, like his guru's energy forming a protective field around him.
And the entity, did it react?
Yes. It withdrew slightly after he clasped the mala. Then it produced this complex, resonant sound vibration.
The sound.
Unique, he says. Experienced both externally and internally, activating his nervous system. and it significantly altered his perception of space and time in the chamber.
Okay. And when the vibration stopped?
The entity extended a hand towards his forehead.
Towards his forehead, what did he do?
Maintained perfect stillness and receptivity. That was crucial.
And the touch, was it physical?
Non-physical. But it caused an immediate, overwhelming energetic surge up his spine, culminating in what he describes as an explosion of light and an expansion of consciousness far beyond anything he'd ever known.
Sahaja samadhi, that state of natural absorption.
That's the term that tradition might use. Consciousness expanded beyond subject-object separation.
In them?
Individual awareness eventually returned. He found himself alone, the entity, the cold, gone. The lamp had burned out. Dawn light was filtering in.
Wow. The trial was over, but the experience wasn't quite finished, was it? What happened when he left the chamber?
Almost immediately after stepping outside, a physical crisis hit him. Hard.
What kind of crisis?
Sudden dizziness, intense nausea, high fever, shaking, periods of confused consciousness. The source describes it as an intense, energetic purification crisis.
Meaning his body reacting to the massive energy shift.
Basically, yeah. A radical physical response to that profound energetic transformation he'd just undergone. His system was overwhelmed, trying to integrate it.
Now, the source acknowledges things like fasting, sleep deprivation, stress played a role.
Absolutely. Modern medical factors are acknowledged. But the author states clearly that explanation feels incomplete against the lived experience and the traditional understanding of this kind of energy work. It links to that idea about integration being vital and physical.
And he was alone through this.
Completely alone, relying entirely on the protocols he'd been given.
Like the mala and the emergency mantras.
Exactly. Kept the mala constantly around his neck, used the emergency mantras during brief moments of clarity. He said they provided tangible, though temporary, relief, like a bandage.
Which really underscores that point about traditional protocols being practical knowledge, tested tech for these states.
For sure. And his reality during those days became very layered, permeable. Physical symptoms mixed with vivid visions, symbolic tableaus bubbling up.
Were there any constants in that state?
Two consistent presences, the source notes. Mahakal felt as this conscious, intense, transformative fire, both the source of the purification and the force sustaining him.
And the other?
Kaskakali, his family deity, a distinctly feminine energy, containing protective, almost like a balance or antidote to Mahakal's overwhelming fire.
And how long did this crisis last?
3 days. Then the fever finally broke.
Leaving him.
Physically wrecked, as you'd expect. But with this profound clarity of perception, a depth of understanding far beyond anything before, the world seemed both ordinary and simultaneously miraculously transformed.
So that intense aftermath was the immediate energetic reset. What about longer-term integration? Making sense of it all.
Physical recovery took time, obviously, but the source really emphasizes the crucial element was integration with his guru, Krishna Lama.
The relationship, the lineage context.
Essential for understanding and stabilizing the experience, reinforces that point about community and lineage being a necessary container.
How did the guru explain the Brahma Rakshasa encounter specifically?
Not as a literal physical entity, nor just a hallucination, but as a threshold guardian.
Okay.
A manifestation of the boundary between ordinary awareness and protected, higher knowledge, a kind of middle path understanding. It honors the subjective reality of it and its objective function in the tradition.
And the fever, the physical crisis, how did the guru frame that?
As the radical reorganization of his energy system, necessary to integrate the profound energetic download from night 3. The analogy used was upgrading the wiring in a house for a much higher current.
Right. Which aligns with descriptions in classic texts like the Vijnana Bahara Tantra about physical symptoms with energy awakening.
Exactly. Modern terms like Kundalini syndrome or spiritual emergency might describe these things. But the source suggests they don't fully explain the phenomenology from this traditional view.
But the biggest part of integration wasn't just the explanation, right? It was the lasting changes he noticed.
Absolutely. These weren't just subjective feelings. The source says he experienced palpable, measurable shifts that lasted for years.
Such
Altered time perception continuing. A big increase in meaningful synchronicities. Spontaneous access to information or insights he hadn't logically derived. Heightened sensitivity to subtle energies in himself, in places, in others.
Wow.
And a greater permeability between waking and dreaming and meditative states. These suggest a fundamental shift in how he experienced reality.
And the source shares this whole account partly to show how these experiences can sit at the intersection of different frameworks: spiritual, psychological, neurological, cultural.
Yeah, the author argues his experience was simultaneously all of those things. You can't neatly box it into just one.
But what's undeniable, according to this account, is the transformative impact, real shifts.
Definitely. And the cremation ground itself becomes this potent metaphor,
The fire-consuming fixed identity, burning away the temporary.
revealing what remains when the forms we cling to dissolve.
So from this whole intense ordeal, the source draws out, what, 5 key truths? Core wisdom from the fire?
Yeah, let's list them out. First, real transformation involves real risk and ordeal. It's not always comfortable or pleasant.
Okay.
Second, preparation matters. Fundamentally, seeking these advanced experiences without that deep foundation is presented as genuinely dangerous.
Makes sense. Third.
Integration is just as vital as the traumatic experience itself. The big event is a catalyst, but it takes time, discipline, support to make it stable wisdom.
Right. Not just having the experience, but living it.
Fourth, traditional wisdom isn't just philosophy. It contains practical, tested knowledge. The protocols, protections, disciplines, they're like sophisticated technologies for navigating these inner terrains.
Technologies tested empirically in their own way. And fifth,
Community and lineage matter. The guru, the tradition, connection to guiding energies or deities, they provide essential context, a necessary container for this kind of development. It happens in relationship, not just in isolation.
so quite a journey we followed here, from Ujjain's unique energy through that incredibly tough preparation.
The terrifying encounters in the deep nights, the physical crisis afterward.
And finally, the integration and the profound, lasting transformation described in this account.
It's definitely a story that challenges our everyday understanding of reality and what spiritual practice can actually involve.
Yeah, it suggests that engaging directly with these powerful transformative processes, well, it isn't neat or easy. It involves real risks.
But according to this source, it also offers unparalleled insights and changes that are described as verifiably there, real shifts.
So this raises a question for you listening. From this incredible account, what really stands out to you the most? Was it the sheer intensity of the preparation?
Or maybe the nature of that encounter with the Brahma Rakshasa, that guardian figure.
Or perhaps the physical aftermath, that purification crisis, and how this tradition understands it? Lots to think about there.
And here's where it gets, really interesting for me. If transformation, especially symbolized by a cremation ground, involves shedding what's temporary, burning away the forms we cling to, like our fixed ideas about ourselves, our limited understanding. What does it mean, then, to identify with something indestructible? If you burn away all the temporary stuff, what's left?
What might be revealed? What essential truth might emerge when the forms we rely on are consumed by that transformative fire?
Yeah, something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.